And welcome to a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, and this is great. We're not exactly technical masters here, the degenerates that appear on the program, and especially me. I mean, I know just enough to screw something up when it comes to any kind of technical activity. And so we were having some sound problems, some bizarre sound problems with Mike Jones on his appearances. He's been joining us every Monday and Thursday now for the last several weeks. And it's always good talking with Mike because he's psychotically texting during virtually every sporting event, and he watches and bets on them all. It's fantastic. So we welcome him in immediately to the program here. No waiting around. Doesn't have to wait for me to go through some long-winded intro and then pick him up and go, hey, can you straighten out that camera? We welcome Mike Jones right into the program. Michael, how are you, my friend? I'm glad we fixed this because lots of what you were saying. And, of course, you get on a brilliant winning streak, and all of your selections are coming out in Chinese, which was rather unfortunate because when you weren't so hot, people were calling in and using message boards and various forms of communication and saying, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Right.
Now you're on fire, and we can't get you on the show.
Right.
But we have you here. How are you, my friend? How you feeling?
I'm great, Jeff. Thanks. Been a fun weekend, even with a name change. So they're using my podcast now as my name, The Big Gunner, which was given to me some 40 years ago by the strength coach of the New York Giants. I was a scrawny little soccer player getting a job in the equipment room of the New York Giants, and he taught me how to work out back when training wasn't as much about lifting and conditioning as it was about playing your sport. And so he all of a sudden he saw my arms grow, and hence the name The Big Gunner, and kind of stuck with me throughout the locker room times. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to do a podcast about the Giants, let's make it a name that someone might be a little catchy and someone, if it goes into my background, would find out. So The Big Gunner, here it is. Now we're giving out games as The Big Gunner, hopefully waving our guns and saluting the people.
This is a major entertainment blockbuster announcement. You will be now having available to no filter viewers, nofilter.net viewers, and all of the various platforms that carry these shows because of their fine distribution. And you're going to be doing a couple of podcasts or streaming shows a week here.
Yeah.
And when do we anticipate? When's the curtain go up on show number one? Tomorrow?
Show tomorrow will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then we're going to do maybe 2, 3. I have other platforms that I go under and places where I podcast from. So it might not be the bookcase or it might be a room or something, but we're going to be a little bit of, throw some versatility into what we're doing. But we're going to talk some different topics, and you and I get into some different things and all around sports. Primarily, my podcast is my passion in the New York Giants, what I think I'm the most knowledgeable about, and a little gambling. Occasionally, I can pick winners like we had.
You're on fire. What are you talking about? You're giving me hockey games that are the lock of the century, and they win 6-0. The Ottawa Senators the other night. Who the fuck is betting on the Ottawa Senators?
Yeah.
Who can research a game between the Minnesota Wild and the Ottawa Senators except some diehard degenerate puckhead?
Yeah.
And then you're calling me with confidence, saying, listen, DeForest, I know you're a weenie when it comes to these sort of things, but send it in on the Ottawa Senators. It's 1-0. It's 2-0. It's 3-0. They're scoring 2 goals at a time. It was incredible. All of a sudden, it's 6-0.
So the guy who gives me the hockey, we exchange picks, and then I saw the other night that when I gave out the game, the Blazers, that we didn't get to put on the air because of a glitch. I was out watching the game with a couple of guys. I said I gave out the Blazers, and they go down 10-0. The guys are looking at me. I leave the restaurant, go home, and the Blazers win by 20. I told my friend who gave me Ottawa, I said, do you believe I had that Portland game and it didn't air? He goes, why didn't you tell me I would have put $1 million on it? You sure?
You've been riding that
for sure it was going to win if you couldn't get it on the air. So
if you are betting, the biggest betting weekend of the year is upon us, right? You got the Super Bowl coming up. We'll get into that a little bit, I'm sure, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all online betting. They really do lay it out for you, make it easy. They have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline, your ultimate game day companion, whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, and they love the first-time starters. And we welcome you if you're just getting your feet wet. You put a toe in the water as a degenerate. Welcome aboard to Bury Your Bookie. BetOnline offers you everything more to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the big game, the day and all of the action count. It's unbelievable what they make available to you. Visit the website, and Bet Online will let you know why they say the game starts here. All right, so I'm watching, and it was Knicks Lakers. I'm a big LeBron fan. I lived in LA for a while, so and I was covering the Lakers for some shithole newspaper out in Fontana, California. And I took it upon myself to. I figured if I was ever going to elevate my career, I would have to start writing about some pro games, and they didn't restrict you as long as you put the high school stuff in there and the girls volleyball and all of the other stuff and some pee wee baseball. A little ring with a guy that was catching fish in a lake. All of a sudden, you got some perch. That was the photo in the sports section I was the editor of. And then I would go cover like a Laker game or L.A. Kings, Dodgers all the time, Angels, to get my foot through the next door and say, hey, look at this. I can write about the pros as well as your guys, whatever. But the Lakers, their featured player then was like Cornell Warner back then. So I had an attachment to him before the Showtime thing. And I'm watching the Lakers, and there's no evidence of. When have you ever seen this happen in the NBA where there was virtually no speculation whatsoever? Where Jason Kidd at the press conference with Nico Harrison, the GM of the Dallas Mavericks, explaining how this popped out of nowhere, it was just a goofball idea he had. And Kidd looked like, remember when Barbara Walters did the interview with Mike Tyson, Ruth Roper, and Robin Givens? And they had like injected right into Tyson's neck, like Thorazine or Dilaudid right before the show. I mean, the guy was on every drug possible to make sure that he didn't do something violent and choke Barbara Wawa until her wig fell off. And he was catatonic the entire time. And that's Jason Kidd sitting there listening to this guy explain what happened. They're like, hey, did you know anything about it, Jason? It's like, he's not the most animated guy. He's done a great job there with the Dallas Mavericks. I think he's distinguished himself as a very, very, successful NBA coach, right? Took him to the finals. That team wasn't that great last year with Luka. But how did nobody know about this, Mike Jones? LeBron supposedly didn't know. Anthony Davis is represented by Rich Paul, who, he never said anything. He's at a barbecue at LeBron's house. He never said, by the way, we're trading AD. Nothing. When did you ever see that happen in the NBA, which is fueled by just idle speculation about crazy trades and free agent transactions?
Never. And my thought was, are we trying to make the Lakers, continue to be the face of the NBA? Like, do we have to say LeBron's going to move out? AD's not that type of player. Maybe we move a major player, young, got a lot of thread on the tires left, and all of a sudden we're going to make him where we want to go. The trade seems very weird. I've always been looking at Luka's game, so talented, can do it all, but I always saw like that he moves at one speed and he's a liability defensively. But great, top 3 player in the league probably. AD on the other hand misses games and looks lethargic after he won the title. It seems like he's been disengaged in a lot of times when you watch him on the court. So to me, the trade is so fascinating because now I just heard Nico Harris say that they felt like we got to worry about culture and what to do, which to me basically says if our leader, they feel, doesn't get in shape and is not there all the time and can't play, do we want to move someone out? Maybe make Kyrie the type guy who stepped up and make that leader and build pieces around him and grab another guy like AD. But you look at them, they have Lively, they have Gafford, they have bigs that can play. So they're adding another one into the mix. So the trade to me seems a little bit more understandable for a league possibility more than I think.
I think Adam Silver might have.
Yeah, I do, because it would have leaked. And the way these guys were talking, like the ESPN writer, Charnier everybody says, oh, were you hacked? Like, no, because no one knew anything, and they probably talked behind the scenes. Windhorst didn't know, and Barkley was saying the same thing, and Wilbon just said the same thing.
They were all absolutely.
Yeah, so they're all surprised, and that makes me feel like maybe this was that the league said, put the Lakers and the Mavericks together on this, get it done. Nobody else knows and keep out. And if the ratings go up, all the other teams benefit from it. So,
yeah, well, it's not like he'll be a hard sell in Los Angeles. It is interesting, among conspiracy theorists, that Los Angeles always gets that guy.
Yep.
Kareem wants out of Milwaukee, which most people would say that was a totally rational decision on his part. And all of a sudden, you had these young popular players that the Lakers were featuring as they were trying to shake their way out of the Cornell Warner era. And they had what? Brian Winters, Junior Bridgman, and Dave Myers, who people thought was going to do better as a pro coming out of UCLA. They shipped him off to Milwaukee, but what does LA get? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Then Shaq. All of a sudden, he wants out of Orlando. Where does he end up? Los Angeles Lakers. Jack Nicholson beaming from ear to ear with that guy Adler, the music producer who sits next to him. Nobody can figure out who the fuck he is, but you can buy and sell Nicholson and half the people in the front row because he was producing like major records with huge, big bands, big successes. But they always end up on the fucking Lakers. Come on. And now Luka becomes a liability, perhaps, for some reason, whatever it is. I confused his family, and I don't know that I've seen his family in the stands, but did you ever see the Jokic family, including for Nikola Jokic? Don't they look like, and I know he's Serbian, but don't they look like the Romanian crime family on Ray Donovan when you see them in the stands? And I'm thinking at first that was Luca's family. And so I thought, well, I can understand why maybe they got the message, a little bit of a nudge, like Luca wants out of here, wants to play in LA. Something along those lines. And nobody explained it. And speaking of being blindsided, it reminded me when Windhorst and Woj and every NBA insider they could find at the time at ESPN were sitting in some roundtable discussion, and everybody was awaiting the decision by LeBron James as to where he was going to go, whether he was leaving the Miami Heat. And he ended up going to Cleveland, of course, famously so. And he had announced that on like some Sports Illustrated platform, and nobody knew what his decision ultimately was until that announcement came out. And these guys are on a show that's going on for 3 hours speculating about all this different shit he's going to do. And then they all look at their phones and go, holy fuck, we didn't know that. And that's how this story, surfaced for me. The other trade had an interesting aspect to it, and you being a baseball guy, you can appreciate this. And I don't know if you want me to challenge you with like what would be a bizarre trivia question, but this happened, and these. Who are these fourth and fifth teams? How are they benefiting in these NBA trades? Where like Utah was involved somehow, but they didn't get anybody, and they didn't give anybody up. And somehow they were the third team in this deal. And now you had this really complicated one with Zach LaVine and De'Aaron Fox. San Antonio's involved. Chicago Bulls are involved. And who else is in on this transaction? What's that?
It was Chicago, San Antonio, and Sacramento, I believe.
Sacramento Kings. Okay, so of course, De'Aaron Fox coming from there. And so in the transaction, the Bulls actually got back a pick that they had traded to San Antonio, which reminded me of the fact that, and I thought there were only one or two of these guys, but there were actually four guys in baseball history that were the player to be named later in a trade for themselves, where they were traded for a player to be named later, and then they subsequently became that player to be named later and were traded back to the team that traded them originally.
Wow, that's a good one. I don't think you've heard any of these.
You might not be old enough to have had the Harry Cheedy baseball cards that I had. I had like maybe 300 Harry Cheedy cards. Okay. Harry Cheedy, a relatively non-distinguished player who hung around the major leagues for a period of time and was a catcher, first baseman, I believe. Anyway, we had all of his cards, and those were the cards that you flipped, and he was one of them. He was traded to the Mets from Cleveland in 1962 and then traded back as the player to be named later in that same deal.
Get him, look at him, don't like him.
The most famous would be Dickie Knowles. You remember pitcher Knowles?
Yeah.
That happened to him and two others, Brad Goulden and John McDonald. But in the NBA, where bizarre shit happens, how about you get your own draft pick back as part of a transaction?
Well, and you could see that happening. You look around the NBA wheels and deals. I think I was looking this year at Oklahoma City's got 3 first-round picks, but not their own. So it's like, how they wheel and deal. And, and then there's all these things. If it's in the lottery, it doesn't go. And, so there's a lot of stuff, little red tape behind all these things that when you look at it, they're different. But this deal's different because there's a lot of picks involved. I think Sacramento got 3 ones, and Levine and, a lot of different real weird deal with this deal, but you're right that what's going on. But it tells me there could be some more superstars ready to go. I think Jimmy Butler's going to get traded, and so you're going to see maybe they're trying to shake up the league. And coincidentally, this is done the week of the Super Bowl. Is there something to be said? The conspiracy theory in me is the NBA a little upset that the NFL went on there Christmas Day kind of journey to take away some of the business, and did it on a Wednesday, which meant now this is going to be permanent. If you can play football games on a Wednesday, you have to think this is going to happen every day of the week where Christmas falls. So
You
now
wouldn't
that
even
was
know
easy.
where the Super Bowl was from the news cycle over the
Right.
weekend.
Right.
The
And
movie
then, but now
trade,
you
I
look
mean,
at
is on Good Morning America. I mean, here you got
yeah,
the weekend announcers there, and they're talking about the Luka Doncic trade.
right.
So
Right. And
that was kind of interesting. All right, it is Super Bowl week. You would not know that the teams had arrived literally in New Orleans yesterday, based on the fact that everybody's still trying to figure out what the fuck went on there. In the NBA. And normally that De'Aaron Fox deal would have been a monster deal with Zach LaVine, a couple of very high-profile NBA players, maybe not at the very top of the marquee, but certainly they're on the flip side, maybe. And nobody even gives a shit about that one because it paled in comparison to seeing a young superstar somehow end up. It's like Patrick Ewing being the number one pick for the New York Knicks that year. How did that happen? Just coincidental that it ended up being the only team that they were negotiating with. And then beyond that, in this age of instant information and everybody's got access to everything, I'm surprised Elon Musk didn't break the story now that he's got access to your Social Security. Well, in my case, payments, but access to all of your information. All right, a couple of streaks. And this was a remarkable weekend. A couple of streaks went down.
right.
I don't know how this impacted you, Mike Jones, from a betting standpoint, but you had Iowa State, which got up to number 3 in the country, and then started a waffle there. They were shaken like an earthquake there by the San Andreas Fault, where they'd lost 3 out of 5, and they had a 29-game home winning streak snapped, and then Houston has a 33-game home winning streak snapped. Houston playing real good basketball this year once again. And the Wizards snap a 16-game losing streak. And you would not have figured that. It looked like they were in beyond full tank mode, trying to get whoever's going to be. Is it going to be Cooper Flagg, number 1 pick? I'm not sure, but I'm not sure that he is worth screwing your fans by deliberately losing every game and putting players out there on the court that belong in some league in Israel. But yeah, it was weird. And then Calipari, I'm sure you kind of
Yeah,
zoned in on that game.
I did. I did.
What was the line on that game where
Eight,
Calipari?
they were 8.5, and I did something weird that I really don't like to do because you set yourself up for middles. But when you bet live betting, I thought Kentucky would put it on them. They've been playing really well, and I thought they'd send a message, And I could see right from the outset that Arkansas had a lot of energy. They only won 1 game in the SEC, and about halfway through the game, I said, I better get on this Arkansas bandwagon. So I basically got off my bet by doing it, setting myself up for middle because I think I laid 8.5 and I laid 3.5 with Arkansas and ended up leaving myself a 12-point middle, but felt so comfortable, which is one of the ways you bet now today. If you think you're watching a game and you're seeing something about a loser, maybe you could turn it into a winner. So I kind of broke even on the bet by
All right.
Arkansas, but it was impressive what Cal did, and he had his team ready.
Is you've become the king of in-game betting adjustments. I mean, you should have been a coach. Every team should hire you at halftime to come in and give and deliver the message to the team to make changes into the second half.
Yeah.
And when you came out for the interview, the vapid interview with the sideline reporter who says, "Hey, coach, what do you got to do different in the second half?" And the guy says, "Well, we got to score more points and we got to stop
Yeah.
on third down." He goes, "Oh, okay. Whoa. I don't think I'm going to watch the rest of the game without that information."
Yeah, we ought to they ought to interview us at halftime. What are you going to do? I'm going to get off this bet. That's what I'm going to do.
I'm going to
Just
go
let
ahead.
him on. That's what I'm going to do.
What a
So, yeah,
sweet profit on Saquon Barkley to under 62.5 in the second half because he's not getting the ball. They're down 17.
Right.
Yeah, I guess, you should be able to capitalize on it. You have turned this into an art form, though, my friend.
Yeah, it's
Here you are getting clobbered in the Arkansas game, and boom, turn it right around there. You saw the pace of the game.
But, you're not going to pick. You look at it, and you're not going to pick more. It's like they give you more access, and they think it's bad for you. And as the book side is saying, how do we? When it started around 2012, how do we incorporate this into our thing? This live betting that's coming on.
Yeah.
And now it seems like it's so readily available. Although the state of Minnesota did shut theirs down, they're not going to provide live betting. But it's it's like there's ways.
How
to do it,
fast do you have to be with your fingers?
It's decent. You get some times where the line will kick you out because the line moves and you have to accept it and all that. But it's you kind of watch it. And of course, we're on a 40-second delay, so you might see a different score on the app than you're seeing on TV. Something could happen, but it's a tricky bet, I think, because you're not sure what you're seeing. Could there be an interception? Could something but they usually shut the line out, so you might be pressing it, and then you get, you get excluded from the bet. But yeah, it's different. It's a different way of betting, and you just get used to it. But probably my rise and fall in this industry has been my eye test. Sometimes my eyes work, and sometimes they don't work. So you
Well,
kind of look at it like, hey, that's it. But
timing would be weird. Now back in the day, the only time you ever experienced anything like that, and it happened to be just Friday,
no,
where I was supposed to be at Gulfstream Park for a show at 1 o'clock, and it was going to be really, really tight. I ran into some traffic, and it reminded me of when you used to be racing to, like, when I grew up in New York, to Belmont Park or Aqueduct to try and get down on a double because you finally had figured something out, but now you were stuck in traffic on the Bell Parkway, and you ended up pulling like you were in one of those police car chases where you're driving like Starsky and Hutch, man. Just jumping bridges and whatever to get there, and you get there just in time. Now you have to just be razor sharp there with your phone in your hand and punching up different apps. But
yeah,
I love the adjustment that you've made. You definitely should be giving adjustments. Never mind Doc Rivers at halftime pleading for the guys to play a little harder. You could come in and say, hey, listen, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that, and boom, and get out of it. All right. Are you inclined to bet golf at all? And
I
you
have,
look like the kind of guy, Mike Jones, that enjoys
yeah.
smoking a cigar, a nice, high-end brand of whiskey in one hand, and almost like I see you almost like when Jackie Gleason used to play golf at Inverary, enjoying golf a little bit. Are you a golfer?
I am. I am. I've actually played competitively. I played in a couple senior amateurs in the
Oh
state.
yeah, wow, okay.
So I have a group of guys that all gamble and bet on sports and do everything that we all play together for years now, and living in Vegas. So a lot of them are work gets done on the golf course. If you're not in a bar or restaurant, you're out in the golf course doing some meeting people, doing whatever. I always find that relationships can be established in a 4.5 hour time on the golf course where you're all trying to do one silly and sometimes stupid thing of putting a little white ball in a hole from 400 yards. But
Yeah.
that's the way people look at it. But for me, it's been part of my, my life that I've, been playing since age 12. So
Oh
it's
yeah,
been,
wow, okay.
yeah,
See, I had no form for golf, and when I moved to Florida, I manufactured a game, as I'm okay at doing in other sports as well. But you'll never really be good unless you have the true form. That's for sure. But
yeah,
that being said, and I can't imagine what landing places I would have been able to find on Pebble Beach. But whenever I mean, all tournaments should be played at Pebble Beach, shouldn't they? Never mind
beautiful.
Augusta National. That place is a dump compared to Pebble
Yeah,
Beach.
yeah,
What? I mean, I've been there one time. I've never played golf there. I stopped in for a very expensive drink in the clubhouse as I was driving on the Pacific Coast Highway. And I thought, I've got to stop in here and just at least see like a hole or two.
yeah,
And some doctors were teeing off. And believe me, I mean, to pay $600 and have your first tee shot in that little brush, that bush that's right there off the women's tees,
right.
and then you have to pretend like you're Arnie Palmer
No,
and you're watching it go out there. But wow, I mean, the intrinsic, inherent, majestic beauty of Pebble Beach is enough to
yeah,
make you think I have to somehow find my way to Northern California there, or I guess it's middle of the state or so.
yeah,
And then, I mean, when you saw the logjam, the proverbial logjam atop the leaderboard, from a betting standpoint, even though some chalk ended up prevailing with Rory McIlroy, I think he might have been the second choice going in there, even though he had never won on that track. Um, wow, what drama! I mean, for
yeah,
golf betting is absolutely the most insane thing. And then when you get into, like you are now, a proponent of in-game betting, I think you can bet on like every fucking putt.
yeah,
Uh, My God, can you imagine?
yeah.
How
I
much
mean,
money could you get destroyed? It would cost you more just to watch the tournament on TV than it would be to play Pebble Beach on a weekday.
we could talk about this on another show, but I had made some statements back when I was living in Vegas that if this becomes legal, when it did, I thought to some smart people that this golf is where we'd see the problem with the fan base. Because if you're at Augusta National and someone has a bet and the guy's lining up a putt for 18 and yells in the middle of a putt,
Yeah,
that will influence the game. And I thought it's going to get to that. And hence this week, which probably is the most insane week of golf, is the
some guy yells out,
the,
"Fuck you, Speed!"
the waste management is this week where the 16th
Oh,
hole,
that's
where
yeah,
the
that's wild.
par three, where they get a hole in one, they whip beers and guys take off their shirts. It's
Yeah,
like nothing like you've ever
they're
seen before.
firing cans down.
But,
It looks like a fight in
yeah,
Barranquilla, Colombia. That I
but
call.
the interesting part of this bet is now they have on Sunday you could look at the leaderboard and bet who will win. So Rory McIlroy was plus 175 yesterday, and I just said I'm not going to take a short price on one guy against the field, but I did take Justin Rose, who ended up taking second at 6-1.
Yeah.
So I mean, I lost small bet. I mean, just to watch it, but
It's
I
tough.
was fascinated by that, and I did have the opportunity of playing Pebble Beach once, and the most nervous tee shot I took in probably a decade was on that first shot when there's 100 people there watching you, and you got to hit an odd club because you can't hit driver because you got to cut it around the corner. So I get up with a 3-wood and hit a 3-wood dead perfect, as nervous as I ever was, and everybody's like, "Woo," and then
And
it
that's all you
was a
could
really
ever.
fun day. Yeah, it
It
was a
could
fun
fall
one of
apart.
the best days of golf of my life playing there. It was
You could shank a grounder into the woods after that, or in
yeah,
this case, the Pacific Ocean, and you just feel good that you got off the first tee in
yeah.
good shape. All right, any picks? We only got a couple of minutes
Yeah,
left.
we'll do a little bit. So, a couple NBA things real quick. Portland's been on a 7-game cover, six
You
out of
love
the
them.
7 wins. Love them. Tonight, this is where it's weird. Tonight they play a back-to-back against a better team. Phoenix, they popped them by 20 Saturday night, and now they play the second game after a night off. And I'm watching the game. Wow, all right. So Portland was getting 3. It went off at 4. I said, "Ooh, I like that. I took it." Now I see the line, the same line, and now it moved to 5. I'm entitled to look at this and say maybe I'm going to change my bet and go maybe Phoenix tonight, that they bounce back after the 20-point loss, being the better team, where this might be the end of the streak. And then the other game to me that intrigues me tonight is OKC going to play Milwaukee. That line started at 9 because of the back to back. I think it's 11 and a half now. I don't know who's not playing for Milwaukee after the back to back night, but this is a rematch of the in game tournament where Milwaukee knocked them out and beat them in the last game and beat them by, I think, handily. I think they were up 20 or something. So why would they lose by 20 in Vegas and now be an 11-point favorite? So I lean a little bit toward Oklahoma City in this game.
Excellent. All right, and Thursday we'll get into your Super Bowl stuff.
You got it.
Always a pleasure. A big gunner, the big gunner,
You got a
you call
podcast.
it Big Gunner podcast.
That's
All
right.
right,
It
and
is.
this debuts tomorrow here on NoFilter.net and all of their various and glamorous affiliates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what time can people look for this?
Well, it'll be we're recording 10 a.m. I believe I don't know if it's going to be live or not, but we're going to do a 10 a.m. recording, and we're going to get used to this no filter, and I'm looking forward to it. We'll talk a little bit about the Giants in the Senior Bowl, but we're going to give out some picks. We have some games and talk about the Super Bowl props, which I'll get into.
Nobody knew anything about this, man. It was amazing. Not one mention of this anywhere.
Kind of like the trade. No one wants to know anything. We're going to keep it silent, so it's good.
My God, yeah, no, that's incredible, especially in the NBA. All right, thanks, Mike. Always a
Right.
pleasure. People, we'll see you tomorrow. Another edition. Scotty M will be joining us for his usual Tuesday slot here. I'll try and pick some games for you and get some insight into the Super Bowl, get that momentum going, and we will see you next time. I'm Jeff DeForest for all the people at Greenlight Ventures, Bet Online, and NoFilter.net, and for Mike Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.